At WrestleMania, Bleacher Report's Mike Freeman says he heard from 4 players, 2 from each conference, who all wondered if Gronkowski is held to a different standard than other players in the league. Max, why is there a double standard with Gronk?
Well, first of all, it seems to exist, right? I mean, it certainly seems to exist. And the first place I think a lot of people's minds go to, and mine included, this is the world we live in, this is the legacy of our country, is it racial? Is it because he's a white guy? That, you know, because if you look at players, Richard Sherman was a model citizen, right? Oh, he's a personality problem. Okay, and there are many other examples like that. And I think the racial component is unknowable. You can't just dismiss it out of hand because we know, you know, the history of our country and the persistent ripple effects that the history has had. We see it in our national politics. We see it in our daily lives. But that's unknowable, the amount to which it affects this situation, particularly because Gronk has that kind of personality that allows him to get away with it. I mean, there are some people who have a kind of personality where they're a lovable rascal, right? They're a scamp. There's something about them that seems harmless, which also people can see through a racial prism, and it's not unfair to see it that way. But my mind goes to immediately Popovich and Belichick, right? They frequently give the media the same thing. When Belichick does it, it's obnoxious. When Popovich does it, it's charming. I think of Marshawn Lynch. Marshawn Lynch ices the media. Some people may be put off by it. I find it charming. I think the media finds it charming. Colin Kaepernick tried it way before the protest and the controversy. Colin Kaepernick tried to ice the media, and boy, people lost their minds. He didn't have the personality to pull it off. Marshawn Lynch did. So to answer the question directly, I think mainly it's because Gronk has that kind of personality. Difficult to exactly define, but he comes across as lovable, and he gets away with it.
Well, you know, obviously that's where your mind goes, where you said first. You go to the racial undertones of it. And there are some of those things, and I already know when I talk to people after this, they're going to be like, RC, you know it's because he's white. And that does have a piece to do with it because sometimes those things are seem less menacing. So I dove deeper into it, and you talked about his personality. First thing is, when you look at Gronk and the way that we quote-unquote call it a double standard, he also never gets in trouble. Right? So the things that he is doing, they aren't illegal. We just don't see them as the Patriot way. The part of his personality you spoke about, he is seen as like that lovable goofball. And here's the reason. He's never anything different. When he plays the game of football, he's exuberant about it. He's youthful about it. The stupid spike dances and the spikes and all the things he do go right there in step with the personality he has. Now, let's look at the fun he has. Let's look at the things that he does. None of those things are dark. None of those things are malicious. None of those things are menacing. It all falls along with how we see Rob Gronkowski. The other part of it is the one racial tone of it is the newsmakers, right? The people who put out the news, not the analysts that get to talk about football, not the commentators that get to speak about the game, the people that make the news, the producers, the networks, right? Those people don't look like me. Many of those people don't have my background. Many of those people don't see things the way I see things. A lot of those people have been to white college frat parties. A lot of those people have been on cruises like Gronk has where everybody goes and has a good time. And so when you see Gronk on WrestleMania and when you see Gronk chugging beers and when you see Gronk grabbing jerseys from Tom Brady and running around the field, those are all things that the people that make the news have envisioned themselves doing or have done before. Right? So it's not like seeing Johnny Manziel with a bottle of Ace of Spades saying rapping March Madness in VIP. Because to me, that's not necessarily a bad thing. But when you're Johnny Manziel and when you've had the history that he's had, it now seems bad to those who make news. Because that is dark. That is
especially
menacing.
And I think when it plays into stereotype.
Exactly.
For example, Ezekiel Elliott is the stereotype for a black man would be menacing. And so when Ezekiel Elliott does something that Rob Gronkowski, it wouldn't be hard to imagine him doing, it's covered as though the behavior is menacing and troubling. And when Gronkowski does it, it's covered as though it's the stereotype from Animal House.
Yes.
Because those stereotypes exist. So I'm not dismissing the racial component of it. And I'm not saying it doesn't contribute to it. In Gronkowski's case, however, I think it's largely his personality, and I think you identified it early on in your comment, Ryan. He's always the same guy,
right?
So
the lovable goofball.
It's consistent and authentic.
Yeah, it's who he is. And, like, I have no problem with him. I never say he should be judged a certain way because, like I say, when you see the things that he's doing, he's not doing anything wrong.
Yep.
Right? He's having fun. He's having a good time. And when you come and you sit in this seat, which is obviously Stephen A's seat, and you're a black man, you are sometimes expected to see everything as race. I don't see this particular instance as just black or white because it's not. It just has a part to play it.
No question. We'll leave it there. When we come back, LeVar Ball may be the most supportive father in